check this out. That's my family, or the way it used to be. There's my mom, dad, brother Dwight, and puppy Lucky. Dad had given him to me. Look into his huge eyes. Lucky really wants you to subscribe to the channel. You won't upset him, will you? And that's me, Rebecca. I had an ordinary childhood, but one day something terrible happened and my life was never the same again. Hi everyone. Mom had always loved Dwight more than she loved me. She spoiled him and never punished him, even though my brother had always been moody and lazy. Children, why is the floor so dirty? Rebecca, did you play outside? No, Mom, honest. It must have been your damn mutt then. It was me. I didn't take my shoes off. Oh, it's all right, Cupcake. Mommy's not mad. Whatever. Dad adored me, though. He worked for days on end to provide for us and buy me gifts. Rebecca, bunny, I brought you something. Wow, a doll? She's so pretty. You could have bought me new shoes instead. Rebecca doesn't need any more toys. We lived in an old and cramped house. I dreamed of becoming an architect and designing an amazing beach cottage for us. Unfortunately, one day I realized my dream might never come true because I had some serious vision problems. Soon, I could no longer distinguish faces. The doctor said I could go blind at any moment. I needed an expensive surgery, but we had no money for it. Dad wanted to sell our house and car to help me, but Mom was against it. Rebecca isn't that talented, and she'd never be able to become an architect anyway. Do you want us to become homeless because of her? I'm going to save Rebecca's eyesight, no matter what. Mom wouldn't let him sell our house, and they started to fight like never before. Meanwhile, my eyesight just kept getting worse. By some miracle, Dad eventually managed to save up enough money for the surgery. He was my hero. The surgery was successful. I could see again. So I kept learning to draw. One day, Dad was supposed to pick me up from an art club. I waited for him for several hours, but he never came. So I went home by myself, only to see my mom crying when I arrived. Children, your father left us and ran away with some other woman. I didn't believe her. Dad would never do that. However, he didn't come back the next day, or even a week later. Our lives changed drastically after that. Mom had to work hard to provide for Dwight and I, but even so, we barely made ends meet, and Mom drove Lucky to an animal shelter. Please, Dad gave him to me. We barely have enough food for ourselves. I can't feed your disgusting dog on top of everything else. I cried for a long time after losing my only friend, but life went on. Mom was having a hard time, and I did my best to help her, even working part-time after school. Meanwhile, Dwight did nothing but lie on the couch all day. He believed he'd one day become magically rich without lifting a finger. What a moron. Despite that, he was still Mom's favorite. Even though it had been years since I last saw him, I kept trying to find Dad on social media. I didn't tell Mom about it because she was still mad at him. One day, I was coming home from school when I heard a plaintive meow and saw a frightened, hungry kitten. Poor thing, you need a home. I hid the kitty under my clothes and I was about to walk into our house, but then I noticed some letters on our porch. I was about to pick them up, but Mom beat me to it. She nervously crumpled one of the letters and then burned it in the backyard. That was suspicious. Later, the same thing happened several more times. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find out what Mom was hiding. I called the kitten Bunny and I hid him in my room. I know, that's an unusual name for a cat, but that's what my dad used to call me. Mom was against having animals in the house, so I had to hide my fluffy friend from her. One evening, someone called Mom. She looked really excited. What? This is so sudden. Let's discuss it. Later, a posh limousine picked her up. Mom got in and left. She came back a few hours later. The next day, she said she wanted me and Dwight to go to a hospital and be examined by a doctor. Mom is acting weird. So, I don't care. Yeah, he only cared about himself. Later, the three of us went to a hospital and Dwight and I were examined, just like Mom wanted. Ah, Dwight. It turns out you have a weak constitution. I should be taking better care of you. Was she kidding? Dwight looked perfectly healthy. The only condition he suffered from was laziness. However, Mom started to buy him all sorts of vitamins to try and fatten him up. This is all for you, sweetie. She wouldn't let my brother do anything around the house. All the chores became my responsibility. It made 0 sense, and I felt like I was losing my mind. I spent the evenings petting Bunny and getting ready for the university exams. One evening, Mom ran into my room, furious. I thought she had found out about the kitten, but that wasn't it. Rebecca, why are you still searching for your father? I saw everything. Oops. Yeah, no wonder she was mad. Then she called Dwight and said she needed to tell us something. The truth is your father is dead. It was all Rebecca's fault. He was on the way to pick her up when he got into an accident. You're old enough now to know the truth. After that, she coldly forbid me from looking for Dad and left the room with Dwight. For a long time, I couldn't move. Dad was gone? It was my fault? Tears stung my eyes, and I cried all through the night. The next morning, I decided that I had to pull myself together and be strong. After a while, I noticed that Mom was wearing expensive jewelry and clothes. Then, she bought a new car. I tried to find out where she was getting the money from, but she just ignored me. Mind your own business. My brother didn't ask her any questions because she was giving him a ton of pocket money and bought him a console. What was going on? If it hadn't been for Bunny, I would have definitely gone crazy there. But my kitten kept me calm. He became my closest friend. One day, I sat down at the computer and I was about to delete all the posts I'd made looking for Dad when I got a message from some woman. She didn't tell me her name, but I found out a lot of interesting things from her. It turned out that Dad was the son of a very rich and influential man, Mr. Benson. He owned half the city. There were rumors Mr. Benson was vicious and greedy. Wait, did that mean that Scrooge McDuck was my grandfather? Holy heck. I'm not telling you my name because I'm afraid of him. I don't know what happened to your father. All I can say is Mr. Benson was furious when his man married a woman from a poor family. That's why he cut your dad out of his life and disinherited him. Can you believe it? It blew my mind. But you know what? It made me admire Dad more than ever. After all, he chose love over money. I missed him. Before I could digest that, something else happened. The next morning, Grandpa came over to our house. He was wearing an expensive suit and looked both mean and arrogant. I disliked him immediately. My son lived here? What a squalor. He declared that he was old and looking for an heir. Since Dad had disappointed him, Grandpa decided to leave his business empire to his grandson. Only a boy can be my heir, so I'm not interested in you, girl. My name is Rebecca. Yeah. I don't care. Then he suddenly smiled and hugged Dwight. My boy, I will leave you my fortune. I knew I'd become a millionaire one day. What a touching scene. It made me want to throw up. While they were hugging, I suddenly noticed a familiar limousine outside. I had seen Mom getting into it. That's when it all became clear to me. Mom had known that Grandpa wanted to make Dwight his heir for a long time. That's why she started to pamper her son more than ever. Now I knew where she got the money for the car. Mom soon announced that we were moving into Grandpa's mansion. I had no choice but to accept it. You're going to be living with me until Dwight turns 18. After coming of age, he'll be inheriting my company. By the way, I will not tolerate any animals in my house. He glared at me as if he knew about my kitten. It made me worry, but I wasn't about to abandon Bunny. I'd already lost my best friend once. It wouldn't happen again. I was given a spacious room in the mansion, so hiding Bunny was easy. Everyone treated me like a maid. Well, everyone except for the elderly cook. That lovely woman noticed I didn't like it there, and she did her best to cheer me up. Rebecca, eat this chocolate muffin and smile, please. Thank you. You take better care of me than my own mom. The rest of the staff treated Dwight like he was a prince. Grandpa adored his spoiled, lazy son. You're like a son to me, Dwight. I'm so proud of you. Glad to hear that, Grandpa. Yeah, they were both insufferable. My brother noticed my annoyed look. Jealous, sis? By the way, I'm not sharing my inheritance with you. As soon as Grandpa leaves everything to me, I'll kick you out of here. I don't want that miser's money anyway. I knew I could only count on myself. Dad paid for the surgery to save my eyes. I couldn't let him down. I was diligently preparing for the entrance exams. One evening, I was horrified to discover that Bunny had escaped from my room. Oh no! If they find him, they'll throw him out on the street! I ran out into the hallway and started looking for my kitten. When I was passing by my grandfather's office, I accidentally overheard the old man chatting on the phone with his doctor. That's how I found out that Grandpa was seriously ill. We just need to wait a little, and then I'll be right as rain again. I wondered what he meant by that. I didn't have time to think about it at the moment, though, because I heard a meow. I ran around the corner and I saw the cook holding my kitten. I think I found your friend. Please don't tell anyone about him. I really love this kitten and I don't want him to be thrown out. Oh, Rebecca. You remind me of your father. He loved animals when he was young, too. You knew my father? Yes, he was still young when I started working here. We need to have a serious talk, dear girl. She gave me back my kitten and we went to my room. Once we got there, she confessed that a few years ago when I needed the surgery, Dad had come to my grandfather and asked him for money. But Mr. Benson didn't give him a cent and he sent him away. I'm not even surprised. His greed is legendary. It's weird that he's deciding to leave everything to Dwight. That's what worries me. You see, Mr. Benson needs a kidney transplant. Something's telling me that you're here for a reason. What a coincidence indeed. Her words got me thinking. So I later snuck into Grandpa's study and I found some documents from the hospital. They proved that Dwight would be the perfect donor for Mr. Benson. Hold on, had Mom known about this the whole time? That's why she wanted us to get examined. I couldn't believe the lengths Mom was going through to get more money. I immediately found her and I demanded an explanation. Luckily, Dwight was there and heard everything. So what? When Mr. Benson found out he needed a donor, he contacted me and we thought everything through. After you were examined, it became clear that Dwight would be the perfect donor. Your grandfather promised to make him his heir if I could convince Dwight to donate his kidney after coming of age. See, brother? Mom bought you vitamins and sweets because she was preparing you for surgery. Are you sure you want to become a millionaire if this is the price? Dwight was lost for words. I had never seen him look so upset before. I suggested we get out of there and go back to our old house, but Mom wasn't about to let an opportunity like this slip through her fingers, and she tried to stop Dwight. Sweetie, you're hopeless. You'll never amount to anything. This is your only chance to live a life of luxury. Unfortunately, Dwight listened to her and decided to stay in the mansion until his birthday, and then donate a kidney to get his inheritance. At that very second, Grandpa burst into the room and angrily shouted that he knew about the kitten. I told you I wouldn't stand for dirty animals in the house. Get rid of him, or I'll do it for you. I have a better idea. I was fed up with it all. So I proudly declared that I was taking Bunny and I was going home. My mother and brother didn't want to leave the luxurious mansion and they stayed there. It's your choice, but I'm done. We'll get lost. It's not like we care anyway. At home, I noticed that our mailbox was full to burst. I found a letter from the city prison among the pile of advertisements and bills. What? Was this some sort of prank? I opened the envelope and tears soon streamed down my face. Dad had sent that letter. He was alive and in prison. It turned out that my father had been trying to contact me for years. Mom had hidden the truth and burned his letters. Without wasting another second, I hurried to the prison and I met the person I loved most in the world. Dad, I can't believe it! What are you doing here? Oh, Bunny, you're all grown up. Dad said that after Mom refused to sell our house and Grandpa hadn't given him any money, he stole it to pay for my surgery. I was arrested that day. I was supposed to pick you up from the club, but I don't regret anything. All that matters is my girl can see. Mom was mad at Dad for what he did. After all, she had to find a job and take care of us all by herself when he was arrested. I wasn't even upset with her. At that moment, I was just happy that he was alive. Soon, I'll be free, and we can be a big happy family again. While I was waiting for Dad to come back home, I lived in our old house with my kitten. At that time, I got into university, and soon I presented my house project at a young architects contest and I won a grant. That meant I could go to Hawaii and build houses there. Dad was finally released from prison. I once promised him that one day I would design an amazing beach cottage for us, and that dream finally came true. I was over the moon. We packed up to start a new life in Hawaii, but then Mom and Dwight suddenly came home. What are you doing here? Oh, it was terrible! It turned out the doctors had made a mistake. Dwight couldn't actually be a donor after all, and when Grandpa found out about it, he immediately kicked my mom and brother out. Will you forgive us and take us back? Dad and I exchanged glances and then got in the car and waved goodbye. Some people don't deserve second chances, right? Dad didn't drive us to the airport though. What are we doing in an animal shelter? Dad went inside and came out a couple of minutes later with Lucky in his hands. Can you believe it? My puppy had grown up, but he still remembered me. The dog happily licked my face and I hugged him. I hope Lucky and Bunny will become friends and not fight like cats and dogs. Now the whole gang's here. Hawaii, we're coming! Sometimes life can be cruel and give you lemons, but if you're kind, true to yourself, and patient, you will eventually be rewarded. My story is proof of that. Psst. Hey, do you want to get lucky next week? Then subscribe to the Private Diary channel. They say it brings good luck.